Hi there. We're currently in a global pandemic and the world is kind of falling apart. And because life is pretty stagnant at this moment in time, I've been able to reflect a lot on just past memories just to keep myself sane and remember that there was life before this. I started thinking about times that influenced me, changed my life. I came across in my mind the time that I came out in chapel in school in front of everyone, including my headmistress. That was 2 years ago, not even 2 years ago. I'm confident enough in myself and in everything that happened to tell the story. I have seen a lot of people uploading stuff about quarantine and things. I personally have been trying to avoid that and been searching for a distraction, and I acknowledge that I'm incredibly privileged to be able to just be distracted from all of this chaos. So I thought I'd put this out there. You can allow it to distract you or not, and you can judge me or not. Right, so we're just gonna get into it. Quick backstory. I could take this back all the way to first grade when I was like 8, but we don't have time for that, and I don't think you care that much. In summary, I was just very typical. I would see a girl and I'd be like, oh, she's pretty, I want to be her friend. I did not just want to be her friend, but I didn't know that at the time. No one else knew that at the time. Looking back now, yeah, I didn't just want to be friends. And I have a flag, that's how you know it's true. That wasn't even really a big thing in my life. I had my first and only boyfriend in 6th grade, kind of confirmed that, you know, I was interested in men. Life was good. I mean, we're on this planet to serve men, right? That's our purpose here. But the bisexuality really stepped up its game when I got into high school. I had a very big crush on a specific grade 12 who was involved with my grade a lot. She helped us, you know, adjust to being in this new atmosphere. Also, if you didn't know this, which you probably didn't, I went to an all-girls Christian boarding school. Yeah. So I really liked this girl and I was really confused. I didn't quite understand. We weren't friends or anything. I was just completely baffled by my thoughts and feelings, and I was like, what's going on? This isn't normal. No one else feels like this. No one else is acting like this around her. So what ended up happening is I just avoided her completely and could not wait for her to graduate because I was convinced that once she was gone, everything would go back to normal and this weird feeling would just stop. Spoiler alert, it didn't. So we're gonna fast forward a couple years and it's now my final year in school. All this period of time, I've still been very happily closeted to myself and to everyone around me. However, at the very beginning of the year before we went back to school, I very distinctly remember for the first time the idea that maybe I was bisexual floating into my conscious thought. As I was falling asleep, I mean, talk about being attacked out of nowhere and feeling completely vulnerable. That led to about a week of very bad sleeping and me just lying awake staring at the ceiling at night like, oh god. And I would just like to preface all of this by saying I was a very big advocate for the LGBTQ+ community. Some of my friends and I were roughly the only ones who were at school, but what no one really tells you, it's a very different thing to support a cause and be an ally and then suddenly realize that you're a part of that community yourself. Although I had always considered myself very open-minded and very accepting of that kind of thing, I struggled a lot to accept it within myself, which is really strange. I think internalized homophobia it's so annoying. It's so frustrating because I can look at someone else and be like, I accept that lifestyle, that's amazing, go you, and then look at it within myself and just be so confused. It was the most bizarre experience of my life. It proved to me internalized homophobia is really a thing. So after many existential crises and much oppression of my sexuality, I decided to come out to my best friend because I knew she would accept me, and even that was so difficult. I just remember like my hands were shaking and I couldn't even look at her, and I just like kind of spat it out in the middle of nowhere. I think we'd been having a conversation about a party we're going to, and I just said it, and she was so obviously, as predicted, she was completely fine with it. I think she maybe even liked me more for it. But that experience kind of proved to me that I wasn't quite ready to come out to anyone else yet. If this is how nervous I was telling someone who I knew would accept me, how could I ever tell anyone else? I was very confident in myself that I was not gonna come out until after I had left school because I was absolutely petrified of being judged. Being in an all-girls boarding school, I was so scared that, you know, being in the showers or the changing room with someone, they would panic and think that either I was gonna do something to them or I was perving over them, which I never did, just by the way, putting that out there. There's a massive difference between being just a creep and being a part of the LGBTQ plus community. They are very different things and not connected in the slightest. So no, I did not perv over anyone in the bathrooms, but I was terrified that that's what people would think. There were those kind of stigmas going on. I would sometimes hear people say things like, oh yeah, I'm completely fine with the community. As long as no girl, you know, has a crush on me, then I'm fine with them. I don't know, just that mindset kind of put me off a bit. Also, overhearing someone once say, at the age of 18, saying LGBT community? What's that? That was a conversation I overheard. It was not the right environment. I was convinced it wasn't the right environment, and I thought it would make my life miserable, and everyone would act really weird towards me, and I already kind of felt weird and a bit out of place and like I didn't belong, you know, being an angsty teen and all. And I didn't think this would help until one fateful day on the 27th of July. I do remember the date because it was very important to me. On that date, we were called into the chapel for an outside speaker to come and talk to us. This wasn't abnormal because they like to tell us things. So we all went in there. I was fully prepared to like zone out for the hour. I was convinced it was going to be some like religious sermon, and I swung between atheism and agnotism. I was not really the target audience for these kind of talks, or maybe I was. Maybe it was all for me, really, you never know. We went in there. I sat next to my best friend, the one who I'd come out to, and I was, you know, ready to look at her and be like, oh god, here we go again. But the man standing there was very different to anyone who'd ever been to speak to us before. First of all, he was quite young. Second of all, he appeared openly gay and he had his nails painted, and I was like, this isn't going to be any normal talk, is it? And I was right. The guy himself did very little talking, to be honest, so I don't think he could quite be called a speaker. His whole goal was to create an open debate or an open discussion, because he feels that in school atmospheres, and I think this is very true, in school atmospheres there is a lot of discrimination and oppression and stereotypes going on that no one ever acknowledges or talks about. It just kind of runs in the background and people are affected by it and feel oppressed or hurt by it, but no one ever says anything. And he wanted to take this time, this hour, and he wanted to give the floor to us and let other people talk about how they felt oppressed or discriminated against. But I think all schools should do something like this, hearing people's personal stories about how they felt they've been mistreated by even teachers or by their friends who didn't even realize. I think that that's a very important thing to talk about. The atmosphere was really heavy because people were talking about like serious issues and how they felt done in by the system. People were crying left, right and center, and then I started crying, and I guess everyone thought I was crying for the same reason they were crying. No, I was just crying for the end of my closeted days, because I thought, you know, this is the one time that it makes sense. I could have the floor and just come out. I could maybe make a difference, because I mean, surely there had to be someone who was in the same boat as me. There were 360 something girls in that hall. You're telling me I'm the only one who was bi or part of the LGBTQ plus community in general? I think not. I put my hand up. It was the most surreal experience of my life. I was shaking and quivering, and there was a part of me that was like, he may not choose me, because a lot of people had their hands up and we were kind of running out of time. We had about 15 minutes left, and I'd been delaying for about half an hour, like maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, and like my courage building up and then just smashing it down. And I finally got the courage to put my hand up, and I was like, maybe he won't choose me. And he's like, okay, we can only do like 2 more people, and there were like 10 people with their hands up, and I was like, okay, he's not gonna choose me, but let's just keep the hand up and feel good about myself. Then he chose me and I was like, fuck. I was silent for like a solid 3 seconds, and he looked like he was about to be like, you can talk, but I like took a deep breath and my voice cracked as I said it. But I was like, many people don't know this, but I'm actually bisexual. I felt like I was in a movie. I felt like I was watching a movie, like I wasn't even a part of it. I've never had such an out-of-body experience in my life. I felt like I wasn't there. I just didn't feel like I was there. As soon as I did it, my best friend grabbed my thigh so hard, because she like, it gave her a fright, and she was like, oh my god. And it was like just also a support and stuff, but I didn't feel it. I couldn't feel anything. Everyone started clapping and I was like, I'm literally in a movie. I'm in a movie. What's going on? And after everyone stopped clapping, I was like, yeah, so I'm bisexual, and I never really wanted to come out because I was terrified that if someone saw me look at them, they'd think that I had a crush on them, and people would be creeped out by me and would be scared in changing rooms, which is such a misconception. I said all the stuff I wanted to say, and then I stopped, I finished, and I was done, and the guy was like, well, that's amazing, that's great, and he was like really happy, and he gave like a whole little, you know, response, which I cannot for the life of me remember. He was so nice and so sweet, and I wish I could remember what he said, because he offered some like great support and said some really supportive things, but I was just in such shock about what I had just done, and I could feel my body like shutting down, and I thought I was gonna faint. And I got a bit more confident because everyone was clapping and stuff and like patting me on the back and like, yeah, that was great. And then 2 minutes later I was just like, oh god, what have I done? Oh my god, what have I done? Why have I done this to myself? Yes, I've 2 minutes of fame, congratulations, and now you're gonna be treated fucking awfully for the next 6 months. And I was regretting it intensely. And then I regretted it even more when I looked behind me and I saw that although there weren't many BNA teachers in the room, you know, to allow for open discussion, the head mistress had slipped in because it was almost the end. So I accidentally came out to her as well. That's fun. So yeah, there went my plan to not come out until after school. Surprisingly, everyone was quite supportive. Straight afterwards it was lunch, and I just wanted to go hide up in my room. I was terrified, but I went and got food, and everyone just kept coming up to me in the line, and when I was eating, and people came up to my table who don't ever talk to me and were giving me hugs and words of support and saying how proud they are of me and how brave it was, and I was like, I don't feel brave. I feel like a scared little girl who just made a very big mistake. And it was very surreal. Everyone was hugging me and being nice, and I was just like, what? But the reaction was a lot nicer, I think, than I expected. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm really grateful to girls in my grade. And then the next, you know, obstacle in my mind was I have to tell my parents because I don't want them to somehow hear it from some parent or something. I was going home that day, coincidentally, which is actually, I only went home like every 3 weeks, so I don't know how that even worked out. Good/bad luck, I guess. I caught a lift home with another girl. The whole ride home, I was just like, oh my god, I'm so scared. And the adrenaline was still pumping through my body. And then I got home, it was afternoon, I delayed it a bit. It got to dinner time, and I was just like, I just need it all to be done today, and then it can never be spoken of again. And I was sitting in the kitchen while my parents were making dinner. I'm very bad at this kind of thing. I didn't know how to start the conversation. I'm not big on super serious conversations. So I was just like, out of the blue, when they were talking about something completely different. I don't remember what was being spoken about because I was very much in my own head. Just like, Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something. And they both looked at me and they're like, yep. And my mom was mashing potatoes and I was sitting on the counter and I was like, I am bisexual. Then I just like looked down at my hands and I was like, oh god. I knew my parents would be supportive relatively. I still wasn't quite certain about what their reactions would be, and my mom didn't even stop mashing the potatoes. She didn't even look up. She was just like, oh. And my dad was like, oh, I thought you were gay. And I was like, what? It was really weird. It was so weird, and I mean, we still don't really talk about it. I think they've only ever brought it up once. People did treat me differently at school, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. A couple weeks went by and everyone forgot. There were only a couple times where I felt really like, oh, what have I done? One of the times in life orientation, we were watching some YouTube video. It was something, I can't remember what it was, but it was something to do with like step forward if you've ever felt this, and two steps back if you've ever felt this, to try to prove a point about something. They did a little intro for each person, and one of the women was like, yeah, my name's like, I don't know, Claire, and I'm bisexual. And as soon as she said that, everyone, I'm not joking, everyone in the classroom looked at me for like 2 seconds to gauge my reaction. I've never wanted to just implode so much in my life. I just sank into my chair. My cheeks were so red. Oh god, it was embarrassing. I don't know what they expected from me to respond to this, to be like, oh yeah, I know her. That American? We're on good terms. All us bisexuals know each other actually. But I pulled through, I persevered. No, I was not bullied. It was only once or twice where I felt like a bit uncomfortable, or a bit like people were suddenly remembering, oh yeah, that girl. But for the most part, it was really good. I got a message from another girl who was kind of in a similar boat to me, and actually said that what I'd said and done in the chapel had helped her a lot. And just that meant a lot to me. And I was like, okay, it was a good thing. I mean, just the fact that I helped her and maybe other people, the fact that I helped someone and made them feel a bit better or more confident in themselves really meant a lot to me, which is why I wanted to do this, because I was like, you know, if I can do that on a small scale, I could put this on the internet and maybe reach more people who I wouldn't meet otherwise. On the whole, do I regret coming out of school? No, not at all. I do think don't rush it if you don't want to. There is no rush. You don't have to force yourself into doing something you're not ready for. I debated whether I was ready after the fact. I debated, was I ready for this? Was I actually ready to handle this in the real world? And although I was convinced I wasn't ready before, after it was done, I was like, yeah, this feels so right. I can joke about things that I couldn't joke about before. I just felt more comfortable and more like, okay, everyone understands, everyone knows, everyone gets it, maybe doesn't get it. And it allowed me to leave school being me instead of leaving school being closeted. I don't know what my plan was. How was I gonna come out? Was I just gonna post something on Instagram? I don't know what the plan was really. I don't know what was going on there. It still took me a while to completely accept myself, to completely love myself. It wasn't like suddenly I came out and I was completely self-accepting. I mean, as I stand right now, 2 years later, I'm really happy with who I am and I'm really proud of it, and it's not something I want to hide. No, it's not my entire identity, as some like to think, but it is a part of me. That whole situation, coming to terms with it mentally, coming out, the relationship changes I experienced from that all played a part in who I am today. So yeah, I'm sorry if I'm going to talk about it sometimes, because it's what has helped make me me. Yeah, I'm grateful for who I am. I'm grateful for how everything turned out. Things that helped me and made me more confident in myself and helped with accepting myself before I even came out to anyone, where it was watching YouTube videos like Georgia Bridges. When her video came into my feed, I was like, cool, okay, I feel good now, I feel better. And just things like that, they really do help. And I thought, you know, if I could help someone like that helped me, that would be really cool. Since I've been in the UK, a lot of people have questioned my need to come out. The UK is a very different environment to South Africa, obviously, and a lot of people are like, yeah, but do you even need to come out these days? And first of all, I think that's a great mindset to have, that, you know, you just assume like, yeah, just accept someone, who cares about their sexuality? Great, that's how the whole world should be, that's what we should be aiming for. I love that. But it should definitely be known that to have that mindset is a privilege, because there are still places in the world and communities where it is a very big deal to come out, and sometimes it's necessary to come out. It's a form of oppression to feel like you can't say what you are. I definitely felt, by admitting the fact that I was bisexual, I felt quite oppressed. You know, if I mention a girl, I can see in people's eyes, they're just like, what? But you could be, or you could be, oh, and it's just this weird, like, awkward, ambiguous thing, and it makes me really uncomfortable. So it's a personal preference for me to come out to people, just so we all are on a clear footing. Labels aren't for everyone. I completely get that. Some people aren't comfortable with coming out. I completely get that. I'm not saying you have to. I'm not saying you have to put a label on yourself. That's just my personal feeling on the whole thing. Don't ever question someone's need or want to come out. If that's what they want to do, let them do that. Just love each other. Can't we all just love each other? Moral of the story, come out in chapel. Felt very strange to do it in a chapel. The irony was not lost on me. That was my story. I hope you enjoyed it. If it helped you or made you feel a bit more not alone, that's not a real sentence, and I'm glad. Feel free to share your stories. I love hearing people's coming out stories. It's very wholesome. Stay safe, kids, especially in this apocalyptic dystopian period that we are currently living in.